I stood in my corner office on the 50th floor, watching the sunset paint Manhattan's skyline in shades of gold. 25 years ago, I had cleaned offices like this one, studying business textbooks during my breaks and dreaming of the day I would have my own empire. Now, as CEO of Global Ventures International, I was about to close the biggest acquisition of my career. My phone buzzed. Emily flashed across the screen, my daughter. The same daughter who had spent the last 3 months avoiding introducing me to her fiancé's family. Mom, her voice was tense. About tonight's dinner. I already knew what was coming. I had heard variations of this excuse for months. The Harringtons are very traditional. They summer in the Hamptons, winter in Aspen. Bradford's mother is on the board of practically every charity in New York. I just don't think. You don't think they'd understand having a mother who started from nothing. I finished for her, keeping my voice neutral. Could you just, maybe say you're working late? At the cleaning company? The irony almost made me laugh. I was indeed working late, but not scrubbing floors. I was finalizing the $2 billion acquisition of Harrington Hotels International, the very chain her future in-laws were so proud of frequenting. Of course, sweetheart, I said softly. If that's what you want. After hanging up, I looked at the documents on my desk. The Harrington hotel chain had been struggling silently for years, the prestigious name masking mounting debt. When my company offered to buy them out, they had jumped at the chance, though they had never met the CEO behind the offer. I had let my lawyers handle everything, knowing my daughter was dating Bradford Harrington. Ms. Sullivan? My assistant knocked gently. The Harringtons are waiting in the restaurant's private boardroom. Perfect timing. I gathered the contracts and stepped into my private elevator. The Grande, the flagship restaurant of their hotel chain, was about to become mine, along with everything else bearing the Harrington name. As I descended, I thought about Emily, my brilliant, beautiful daughter, who had somehow become ashamed of her roots, who would rather pretend her mother was still cleaning offices than admit she had been raised by a single mom who worked her way up from nothing. The private boardroom had a discreet entrance through the kitchen. As I walked through, I heard familiar voices from the main dining room. Really, Bradford, a cleaning lady's daughter? A woman's cultured voice dripped with disdain. I understand she's pretty, but think of the family name. Mother. Bradford's voice held a warning note. Emily's background doesn't matter. Does it matter? Another male voice, presumably Bradford Sr., scoffed. Do you know what people will say? The Harrington heir marrying someone whose mother scrubs toilets for a living? I paused in the kitchen doorway, watching the scene unfold. Emily sat at their table, her face flushed with shame, as her future in-laws dissected her worthiness. She hadn't even tried to defend me. I apologize for my mother's situation, she whispered. She's working late tonight cleaning offices. As she should, Mrs. Harrington sniffed. At least she knows her place. I had heard enough. I straightened my Armani suit and nodded to the matron, who immediately rushed to the Harrington's table. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington, your presence is requested in the private boardroom. The CEO of Global Ventures is ready to sign the acquisition papers. Mrs. Harrington's face lit up. Finally, Bradford, darling, come along. Let's meet the person saving our hotel chain from your father's unfortunate investments. I watched Emily's confusion as her future in-law stood. I didn't know the hotel was being sold, she said to Bradford. It's been kept very quiet, he mumbled. Family embarrassment and all that. Emily, dear, Mrs. Harrington's voice was sticky sweet. Perhaps you should wait here. This is rather above your background's understanding. I stepped back into the boardroom, setting my briefcase on the polished table. Through the one-way glass, I could see the main dining room. I watched as Emily sat alone at the table, looking small and lost. The door opened. Mr. Harrington entered first, followed by his wife and son. Their expressions shifted from confident to confused as they saw only me in the room. There must be some mistake, Mrs. Harrington said. We're here to meet the CEO of Global Ventures. I smiled, remembering all those nights cleaning offices while dreaming of moments like this. No mistake, Mrs. Harrington. I'm Catherine Sullivan, CEO and founder of Global Ventures International. I believe we're here to discuss my acquisition of your hotel chain. The color drained from their faces. Bradford Sr. started to sway slightly. But, Mrs. Harrington sputtered. You're a cleaning lady? I raised an eyebrow. I was, yes. 25 years ago. Now I own one of the largest hospitality conglomerates in the world. And in about 5 minutes, I'll own your hotel chain too. I opened my briefcase, removing the contracts. Though before we sign, perhaps we should discuss something even more important than business. I pressed the intercom. Please send in my daughter. The door opened again, and Emily stepped in. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene, her future in-laws frozen in shock, me behind the CEO's desk. Mom, her voice cracked. I don't understand. Sit down, sweetheart, I said gently. I think it's time we all had an honest conversation about backgrounds, worth, and what really matters in building a legacy. Mrs. Harrington collapsed into a chair, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her pearls. You're Emily's mother, the cleaning lady? The very same, I smiled. Though I believe we need to discuss your earlier comments about knowing my place. After all, I tapped the contracts. In about 5 minutes, I'll be your boss. The look on their faces was worth every moment of hiding my success from my daughter. Sometimes the best lessons about judging people's backgrounds come with $1 billion price tag. The silence in the boardroom was deafening. Emily stared at me as if she were seeing me for the first time, while Mrs. Harrington's complexion had gone from pale to almost green. This is impossible, Bradford Sr. finally sputtered. Our lawyers have been dealing with global ventures for months. Yes, I nodded. Through my legal team, I stayed in the background for obvious reasons. I glanced at Emily, who had sunk into a chair, tears forming in her eyes. All this time, she whispered, when I was telling them you were working late cleaning offices, I was actually working late running the company that was about to buy theirs. I kept my voice gentle. Every time you made excuses for my absence, I was in meetings, managing acquisitions, building the empire you were so ashamed of. I wasn't ashamed. But her voice cracked on a lie. Really? Mrs. Harrington had found her voice again, though it trembled slightly. Because you told us quite explicitly that your mother was a cleaning lady who couldn't possibly understand our social circle. Like you understood it? I interrupted, opening a folder. Let's talk about understanding things, Mrs. Harrington. Like how your family has been mortgaging properties to cover mounting debt. How your husband's gambling habits have nearly bankrupted 3 hotels. How your son Bradford here has been embezzling from the company's accounts to cover his own expenses. Bradford Jr. went pale. How did you? Due diligence, I said simply. I know everything about my investments, including how you've been lying to Emily about your family's financial situation. Emily turned to Bradford, her eyes wide. You told me your family was helping with the wedding costs. They can't, I said softly. They're broke, sweetheart. The Harrington name is worth millions, but their bank accounts tell a different story. That's why they're selling to me. Mrs. Harrington stood, straightening her designer jacket. Now see here. Whatever you think you know, I know that you're 3 months away from bankruptcy, I cut in. I know that your social circle has no idea how close you are to losing everything. And I know that while you were judging my daughter for her background, you were desperately hoping my company would save you from social ruin. The room fell silent again. Emily was looking between Bradford and his parents, realization dawning in her eyes. The country club membership, she said slowly. The Hamptons house. The private jet. None of it's really yours anymore, is it? Emily, darling, Mrs. Harrington tried to recover. These are just temporary setbacks, which is why you're selling to my mother's company. Emily's voice had found its strength, while treating her like she was beneath you. I stood, walking around the desk. The contracts are ready to sign. Once they do, Global Ventures will own controlling interest in Harrington Hotels. We'll keep the name. It still has value. But there will be changes. Changes. Bradford Sr.'s voice was weak. First, a complete audit of all accounts. I looked pointedly at Bradford Jr., who squirmed. Second, a restructuring of management. And third, I paused, looking at my daughter. A lesson in humility. You can't do this, Mrs. Harrington's voice rose. We'll find another buyer. There are no other buyers, I said simply. I made sure of that. You can sign, or you can face bankruptcy court next month. Your choice. Bradford Jr. stepped forward. Emily, baby, we can explain. Explain what? Emily stood. How you let me believe my mother wasn't good enough for your family. How you hid your own family's financial disasters while looking down on her. I think, I said quietly, everyone here needs to reevaluate what makes someone good enough. Mrs. Harrington sank back into her chair. What do you want from us? Want. I smiled. I want what any mother wants. I want my daughter to be proud of who she is and where she comes from. I want her to understand that true worth isn't about names or backgrounds. It's about integrity, hard work, and treating people with respect. I picked up the contracts. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these papers. You're going to apologize to my daughter for the lies and the pretense. And then we're going to have a very honest conversation about the future. Bradford Sr. reached for the papers with a shaking hand. And if we sign, then we move forward. Global Ventures will stabilize the company. We'll protect the Harrington name, though perhaps it's time that name stood for something more than just old money and empty pride. As the contracts were passed around for signatures, Emily came to stand beside me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. No, sweetheart. You were just young and impressed by the wrong things. But now you know, real power isn't about showing off or putting others down. It's about knowing your worth and lifting others up. Mrs. Harrington signed the last page, looking defeated. So what happens now? I collected the contracts, handing them to my waiting lawyer. Now we order dinner. And we have a long overdue conversation about what really makes a family good enough. Emily squeezed my hand, and for the first time that evening, I saw my daughter, my real daughter, emerging from behind the society mask she had tried so hard to wear. The weeks following the acquisition changed everything. Emily broke off her engagement to Bradford, not because of his family's financial situation, but because, in her words, I finally saw who they really were and who I was becoming. The society pages buzzed with the news of Global Ventures' takeover of Harrington Hotels, though few knew the personal drama behind the business headlines. Mrs. Harrington's charity board positions quietly disappeared, and Bradford Jr. found himself working in hotel management, starting from the ground up, under my direct supervision. 1 month after the acquisition, I was in my office when Emily knocked on the door. She looked different, more like the daughter I had raised, less like the society princess she had tried to become. Mom? Do you have a minute? I gestured to the chair across from me. Always for you. She sat down, fidgeting with her sleeve. I've been thinking about everything. About how I treated you. About what I almost married into. We all make mistakes, sweetheart. No, she shook her head. This was more than a mistake. I was so caught up in trying to fit into their world that I forgot everything you taught me. About dignity. About real worth. I leaned forward. And what have you learned? That I want to be like you, she said firmly. Not just the successful CEO part, though that's incredible, but the part of you that never forgot where you came from. The part that treats everyone with respect, from the cleaning staff to the board members. I smiled, remembering my own journey. Would you like to hear something interesting? Every year, I still spend 1 day cleaning offices. Her eyes widened. What? Why? To remember, to stay grounded, and to remind myself that every person who works for me, at every level, deserves respect. Emily was quiet for a moment. Can I join you next time? Of course. I paused. But first, there's something else we need to discuss. How would you like to learn the family business, the real way, from the ground up? Her face lit up. Really? Really. Starting in hotel operations, then working your way through each department. No shortcuts, no special treatment, just like I did. She stood and came around the desk to hug me. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for letting me make my mistakes, for being there when I finally saw the truth. That's what mothers do, I said softly. We wait, we watch, and we hope our children find their way back to what really matters. Later that evening, as we had dinner in my penthouse overlooking the city, Emily asked, "Whatever happened to Mrs. Harrington?" I smiled. She's currently undergoing what I call perspective training. She's working as a hospitality coordinator in one of our hotels. It turns out she's actually quite good at it, now that she's learned to treat everyone with respect. And Bradford? Learning hotel management from the ground up, including, I couldn't help but smirk, cleaning duties. Emily laughed, then grew serious. You know what's funny? I thought their world was so perfect, so elite, but it was all just smoke and mirrors. Success without integrity is just an illusion, I said. Real success comes from hard work, respect, and never forgetting where you came from. She raised her glass. To backgrounds worth being proud of. I clinked my glass against hers, and to daughters who find their way back to what matters. As we looked out over the city lights, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From cleaning offices to owning them, from hiding my success to using it to teach valuable lessons. But the greatest success wasn't the buildings I owned or the empire I had built. It was sitting right across from me, finally understanding what real worth means. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come wrapped in difficult packages. Sometimes we have to let our children lose their way before they can truly find themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best revenge against snobbery and prejudice isn't showing off your power. It's using it to teach others the very lessons they believed they were above learning. Emily and I went back to work the next day. She took her entry-level position in hotel operations, me to my CEO duties. But now we shared something beyond mother and daughter, beyond success and failure. We shared an understanding that true worth isn't found in social circles or bank accounts. It's found in the dignity with which we treat others and the pride we take in staying true to who we really are. After all, the best background isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you build with your own hands, your own integrity, and your own unwavering sense of self-worth.